So y is equal to a times in parentheses x minus p times in parentheses x minus q is what we call intercept form. And this is what we get when we take an equation that's in standard form, which looks like a trinomial, right? Remember that from Algebra 1? And we factor it. Then we get something that looks like intercept form. And it's called that because it gives us both x-intercepts on a silver platter, because those have the coordinates which are equivalent to the numbers for p and q. And the vertex, we will find a little different this time. The vertex follows the formula p plus q divided by 2. That's the x-coordinate. And in order to get the y-coordinate, we just plug this into the equation. Looking at our first example here, we can now determine what p and q are. Pay close attention to the minuses in your intercept form. So a double minus means that p in this case is positive 3 and q is positive 7. We can use this to find our vertex. 3 plus 7 divided by 2 is equal to 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. Let's go ahead and plug this in to find our y-coordinate. Negative 5 minus 3 times 5 minus 7. So we get negative 2 times negative 2. In other words, negative 4, positive 4. And I apologize for my pen acting up here a little bit. So the vertex has the coordinates 5 and 4, which means that our axis of symmetry, x is equal to 5. Our y-intercept, we always find where x is equal to 0. So negative 0 minus 3 times 0 minus 7. The negative of negative 3 times negative 7. In other words, the negative of 21. Y-intercept is at 0, negative 21, and that would of course be a little difficult to graph. Now the roots are going to be very easy for us to find because we do have our p and q. The roots are positive 3, 0 and positive 7, 0. And now we can go ahead and graph our parabola with a vertex at 5, 4. Now let's look at our A. Our A is negative. That means we are pointing that parabola downwards. In other words, go 1 over right, 1 down, 2 over to the right, 4 down. Same to the left. And that gives us our nice parabola. For facing down, it has a maximum, and the maximum is at the vertex with the coordinates 5 and 4. The domain is, you knew it, x is an element of the real numbers, and the range goes from negative infinity all the way up to positive 4 with square brackets around it. Positive 4 is, as always, an element of our range. Let's move on to our next example. In this example, a is equal to 2. I'm already going to make a note of that. P is equal to -1. Remember, we need to switch the symbol of the parentheses. And Q is equal to positive 3. So then let's go ahead and find our vertex. -1 plus 3 divided by 2. In other words, 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. That is our x-coordinate. Plug that in nicely into the equation. 2 times 1 plus 1 times 1 minus 3. 2 times 2 times -2. We get 4 times -2. In other words, -8. And here we got our vertex. The axis of symmetry is x is equal to positive 1. The y-intercept is going to be at 0. Plug that in. 2 times 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 3. 2 times 1 times -3. In other words, -6. As usual, for the roots, we don't have to do a lot. We just take the numbers that we have for P and Q. -1, 0 is one of the roots. Positive 3, 0 is the other root. Now let's go ahead and graph our parabola. The vertex is at positive 1, -8. And I'm going down 8 steps, which means I have to go just one step further, 1 unit further than my coordinate plane actually reaches. We have an y-intercept at 0, -6. We have roots at -1 and 0, and at positive 3 and 0. And that's pretty much already all the points we need. But remember, the dilation will give us the same thing. The dilation is positive 2. We are definitely pointing that parabola upwards, but it is stretched by a factor of 2. So from our vertex, I go 1 to the right, 2 up, 2 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 up, landing right on the x-axis. 1 to the left, 2 up, 2 to the left, 8 up. This is our parabola. With our axis of symmetry. Let's talk about our maximum or minimum. This parabola has a minimum because it's pointing upwards, which is at the vertex with the coordinates 1, -8. Our domain x is an element of the real numbers, and our range starts at -8 and goes all the way to positive infinity. One last thought about the way we find the vertex with intercept form. Look at your formula for the x-coordinate. You're using P and Q and you're adding them and then dividing by 2. Essentially, you're taking the average because you are finding the midpoint between, remember midpoint from geometry, the midpoint between those two roots, those two x-intercepts, and knowing that the parabola is symmetric, which is what the axis of symmetry also tells you, you know that the vertex is going to be right in the middle, or at least its x-coordinate is going to be right in the middle between the two roots. That's really what that formula p plus q divided by 2 is all about. Maybe that helps to remember it and memorize it better. This is it for today's tutorial. Now finish your summary, please, and I will see you in class.